Yo, what's happening everyone? It's me, Mr. Premps, and I'm here today with something different. A theory. With bounties being one of the most discussed topics in the story, I thought, what about if One Piece was an alternative reality and the Marines were actually pirates? And if this was the case, then what would their bounties be? So in this video, I'll be looking at some of the more popular Marines and assessing what their bounties would be and my reasons for it. Now I have no idea how many Marines I'll discuss, as I haven't quite decided, but I'm excited to know what you think their bounties would be, so let's see how things go. Now as an FYI, their list isn't going to be solely based on strength, because we all know that that's not how bounties are decided. But now I have that out of the way, let's get into this video. So the first Marine that I want to take a look at is Koby, and I'm giving him a bounty of 250 million berries. And that's because if Koby were a pirate, I'd definitely have him as part of the worst generation. Now it's understandable that some may want to question his strength, particularly when we first met him, but I don't think that that's an issue as things stand now. Koby was first introduced to us as a coward, but by the time we reached Marineford, we saw how much potential that this nerdy kid from the East Blue really had, as Koby awakened what appeared to be a monstrous type of observation haki. Koby was able to sense every living person on the battlefield and also sense their life force disappearing. However, you're probably wondering how I got to this number of 250 million. And that's because during the time skip, Koby had his time to train with who else but Monkey D. Garp. And we'll uncover Garp's bounty a little later in this video, but Garp being a Vice Admiral should definitely speak volumes. Now we also learned that Koby has now increased his rank to captain, and this shows that he's had a reasonable growth curve. With the ability to use haki, training under Garp, being a member of Sword, Koby as it stands would definitely be a competent pirate. But how competent would he be? Well, if we use Luffy as a barometer, Luffy received a bounty of 300 million after Enies Lobby, and this was once he had wreaked havoc and took back Robin. So I don't necessarily believe Koby's bounty would be this high. His character is shown to be a little less rash and far more calm, and I couldn't imagine him declaring war on the world government. But on the flip side, Koby has basically mastered the Roku Shiki techniques, and I assume he's a lot stronger than Luffy was at Enies Lobby. I mean, the government have sent him to go capture Boa Hancock, and so for the reasons stated, I think Koby should comfortably sit at 250 million berries. Next on the list is Smoker, and Smoker to me will have a bounty of 300 million berries. Pre-time skip, Smoker was a pain in the ass for Luffy, and even though we saw Luffy get away from him multiple times, he was never truly stronger than him due to his inability to use haki and Smoker being a low gear user. Now over the years, I've heard many people call Smoker trash, but I honestly don't think that to be the case. Smoker did indeed let Luffy get away multiple times, but he did capture him in Logtown, and if not for the appearance of Luffy's father, Monkey D. Dragon, Smoker would have captured Luffy. But with Luffy only being worth 30 million berries at that point, is this really a feat for Smoker? Probably not. But post time skip, we found out that Smoker had his rank increased from captain to vice admiral. So this should speak volumes as to the progress he made over the last 2 years. One thing I can vouch for is that we're told that all the Vice Admirals know at least one type of haki, and we saw this post time skip in Punk Hazard as Smoker used armament haki against Virgo. Now how strong his armament haki was is another discussion altogether, but it's safe to say that he has the ability. So the question of how I got to this 300 million actually comes down to Smoker being outclassed by Law and Punk Hazard. At this point in the story, Law's bounty was around 440 million, and Smoker wasn't even close to his strength, nor the things he had done, such as delivering 100 pirate hearts to become a warlord, but Smoker's tenacity is second to none. Would he be able to take on a 300 million Enies Lobby Luffy? Most definitely. But how about taking on a 320 million berry current Zoro? Probably not. So 300 million berries feels about right. Now next on the list, I wanted to take a look at Green Ball, but with the lack of information we have on him, I honestly wouldn't be able to justify the bounty that I think he deserves. Anything I could truly think of really relies on his rank or the fact that he hasn't eaten in 3 years. But due to the lack of information, I won't give him a bounty just yet. But if you would like to know what I think his bounty would be, let me know down in the comments. But since we're talking about a newly drafted admiral, let's take a look at Fujitora. If Fujitora was a pirate, I'd give him a bounty of about 3.8 billion berries. Fuji joined the Marines during the global draft following the war at Marineford. But within that 2 years, he shot right up to the rank of admiral, and that's simply down to the fact that he's OP in terms of strength. And this isn't all, because Fuji has an OP devil fruit too, and it's called the Zushi no Mi, which is actually a paramecia devil fruit, allowing him to manipulate gravitational forces over such a vast distance to the extent that he was able to bring down meteors from space to hit any target he pleases. We saw at Dressrosa he's proficient in armament haki, and we also saw his OP use of observation haki. And I mean, he's so confident in his observation haki that he didn't fear blinding himself to stop viewing all the injustice in the world. So from a combat perspective, there's not many that could hang with Fujitora. So the question may be why his bounty is not any higher, and that's because of Shanks. If Fuji was a pirate, I would liken him to Shanks. Fuji's intentions seem so pure, and he doesn't appear to be someone to cause unnecessary drama for no reason. Fuji has constantly been working to remove the corruptness of the world, and I therefore do not think that he'd pose an imminent threat to the world government. But the reason I can't put Fuji's bounty any closer to Shanks' 4 billion berry bounty is because Fuji is still new in this game. Shanks, on the other hand, has been a pirate since he was a cabin boy in the Pirate King Gold Roger's ship. I personally believe the experiences and the clout he gained from being the Pirate King's ship puts him further ahead, but 3.8 billion is definitely a respectable bounty for Fuji. Next on the list is Kizaru, and I'm giving Kizaru a bounty of 4 billion berries, and Kizaru is high key about his business. Kizaru might be up there with being one of, if not the fastest in the story, as he is literally light. We've also seen Kizaru use his fruit in such creative ways, such as reflecting, shooting laser beams, and even creating a light sword. But why do I rate Kizaru? Well, pre-time skip, we literally saw him wash 4 members of the worst generation at Sabodi, and even tangle with Rayleigh, who I high-key rate. But that's not everything, because we've seen Kizaru tussle with Marco, and even ignored Ben Beckman's warning to not move at Marineford. But how did I come up with this number of 4 billion? Well, that's because Kizaru is on job. If you need a job done, Kizaru is not one to back away. I mean, think about it. Once he heard about WANO, he told Akainu that he was going to go there to check things out, showing that he did not fear the unknown, nor potentially encountering Kaido. So the question is, why is his bounty lower than the other Yonko outside of Blackbeard? And that's because if Kizaru was a pirate, I still think he lacks some of the other things that the other Yonko have going for them. Kizaru lacks Shanks' intelligence, Big Mom and Kaido's monstrous strength and durability, and in regards to Whitebeard, well, that's the world's strongest man, for goodness sake. However, that's not to take anything away from Kizaru, because he'd definitely be very competent. And I mean, he's part of the OG3, for goodness sake. So a bounty of 4 billion would definitely be suitable for him if he were a pirate. The next marine I want to take a look at is Akainu. And let's call a spade a spade. Akainu is a monster, and due to that he's deserving of a bounty of 4.9 billion berries. And if you doubt this, take Oda's words for it. As Oda said, if Akainu was the main protagonist, he could put an end to One Piece within a year. And that is majorly telling. Akainu has the Magu Magu no Mi, which is the magma devil fruit, and in the One Piece Viva card databook, it's stated as having the highest offensive power amongst all devil fruits, which tells you everything you need to know when it comes to strength. But if we need to acknowledge this further, let's take a look at Marineford and the damage he did there. Even with Haki, who can really tussle for Kaido? His overwhelming stance on absolute justice would pose an immediate threat in an alternative reality, where if he were a pirate, I can imagine him to go above and beyond and being extremely headstrong, and potentially I could draw the similarities to Eustace Kid. And before you all roast me, it's just because I don't think he would let anyone get in his way. Akainu is a monster, and although I detest him for what he did to Ace, I can't let that influence my decision on what his bounty would be if he were a pirate. I guess the biggest question that most people will have is why his bounty isn't even higher. And I bring that back to Marineford, and the fact that Akainu wasn't able to take out an old, sick and wounded Whitebeard very easily. Whitebeard is dubbed as the world's strongest man, and in Marineford he was only a shell of himself. But even Whitebeard in his prime has only attained a bounty of just over 5 billion, and all he ever wanted was a family. Now, taking that into consideration, Akainu being awarded a bounty of 4.9 billion is more than acceptable. Last on my list is Monkey D. Garp, and I'm giving him a bounty of 5.1 billion. And why? Because it's Garp, the hero of the Marines, the guy who teamed up with the Pirate King to take down the Rock's pirates, and these included the likes of Big Mom and Kaido. And this is even more impressive as Garp was seen as some sort of rival to Roger, having clashed with him multiple times, and we can only assume how monstrous Roger was. Garp, unlike the other admirals, bears no devil fruit, yet we are told that his bare hands throwing a cannonball has far more impact than when it's actually fired normally, so that is some crazy strength within itself. Garp is known as the Fist and is definitely strong, and it's presumed that he can use all 3 types of Haki, as he talks about Luffy inheriting Conqueror's Haki. But how can I justify his bounty any further? Well, if Garp was a pirate, he'd definitely have the acknowledgement of his peers, as Whitebeard at Marineford acknowledged Garp's strength, particularly in comparison to Aokiji. Whitebeard kind of referred to Aokiji as a chump, and we know Aokiji was close to Akainu in terms of strength. Garp, however, is the hero of the Marines, and had he been a pirate, could he have become Pirate King? Most definitely. Garp was clearly respected by Roger, so much that he entrusted his son Ace to him, and Garp even as a Marine holds no respect for the world nobles. But if all of this is true, then what gives Garp the slight edge over Whitebeard? Well, Garp is a D, and therefore had he chosen a life of piracy, I could see him posing a bigger threat to the government than Whitebeard. But Garp certainly would not have had Roger's drive, which is why I can't put him at Pirate King level, so 5.1 billion seems fitting of Garp. And I guess I'll stop here. There's a few more Marines and former Marines that I could have spoke on, which includes the likes of Sengoku, Aokiji, Kon, Greenball and so many more, but I didn't think that this would be the right video to discuss them all. But if you would like to see my analysis of their bounties, just let me know you'd like a part 2 down in the comments. Or better yet, name a Marine and I'll add them to the list. As I mentioned, this video was just a bit of fun and many factors go into an individual's bounty. But let me know your thoughts. Do you think I got the bounties right or am I way off? Leave a comment as to what bounties you'd give these Marines, and as usual, if you like anything I've had to say, make sure you leave a like on the video. And if you would like to support me, make sure you subscribe so you never miss out when I drop more content just like this. Say